Okay, we're going to switch back to currency for a moment. We talked about currency for your career being time, but now I want to talk a little bit about, do you know the currency of your manager and organization and what that currency is? And it's not always as clear cut as you think it is, particularly as we're talking about our careers and the work that we're doing either individually or as a manager that aligns to that organizational currency. And so let's break that down a little bit. So when you think about what's important to an organization, you hear a lot of big words at the top level. Well, we want to increase revenue and save more money. Okay, that's usually the top level goals of any business oriented group. And there are many different ways, in engineering groups, this may be about fixing bugs or putting out new features or whatever that currency is. But I think the important point that sometimes people miss out on is, are you translating what your work and the impact that you have into a currency that resonates along the organizational or management goals? And it's not always as clear cut as you might think it is, because while it's easy to say, well, I'm having impact, I'm doing what I need to be done and our business is running. But at the end, when you talk about your career, usually it comes down to what impact that you've had both individually or as a manager in your team. And how do you measure that? And I think the measurement is where, when you manage your career, you can really set some good goals on when you are going after what you're providing to the organization and you're scoping out your measurable impact. Is it going to align and resonate as valuable to the organization? I've worked with a lot of people who have got a lot of work done, but when you look at the impact, while it was impactful, did not necessarily align with the organizational priorities. And that becomes a problem, because part of managing your career is by adding value to your career. And as you continue to add that value towards that currency, that's what allows you to grow. And these concepts, they kind of all work together in tandem, because that translation of what the impact that you want to have for yourself and the team to those goals is really the challenge. And what I mean by that is, they always say, well, you give the customers what they want. Well, why does that change any different for your manager and the organization? They are the customer at the end of the day for you. And it's really incumbent upon us as individuals, whether it's IC or managers, to use the Rosetta Stone to be able to translate what the work that we're doing means in terms of value for the organization, which then adds value to you in terms of currency for your career. Now, we talk about measurable impact, and because that's important, because there can be plenty of impact, but can it be measured? For one thing, is the measurement understood and accepted by the leadership team above you? Because you can have impact, and the way you measure it may not necessarily resonate with how they're used to receiving that data. And this is where I'll say, have you mapped what your manager and leaders actually consider valuable? And I always say there's plenty of ways to do this. They'll do it every day. And you can go look at the decks, you look at their QBRs, you go look at their weekly reviews. And if you don't have access to the meetings themselves, can you get access to the decks or their recordings? And it's important because the context of the questions that they ask allow us to determine as individuals what's important to them. And when you're a manager or an IC and you're building out your deliverables, once you understand what's important to them, you can look at translating your output in a way that will resonate. And I'll use a specific personal example here. So when you work with engineering leaders, what do they know? They know bugs, they know bug resolution rates, they know tasks, they know sprints and schedules, they know how to estimate tasks, and are you going to meet a schedule that you predicted based on how long it does a task? Do you know your burn down? Do you know what your regression rate for your features are with bugs? And I would hypothesize that if you translated the value of your work into deliverables and measurables, whether they're OKRs or key performance indicators or whatever your organization uses as success metrics, then it will resonate because you're bridging a gap of understanding. And I've had a lot of people say, well, I can't do that for my work. I'm a PM and I said, well, okay, let's break that down. You're a PM. A PM has a project. A project you can scope into different deliverables you can put dates on those deliverables and success for what those look like. You can set a schedule for them. You can put them into a Jira or a ticket tracking system, and you can burn them down. And you can have bugs where something comes back. You wrote a doc, the doc comes back for review. How many changes did you have to make? I believe there's a way to do it in almost any work environment that I've been in, but it's incumbent upon us as individuals to learn what our organizational impact is or how they measure it, and then how it's going to resonate, because you want to be able to be speaking, as they say, apples to apples or oranges to oranges. You don't want to be talking cross level where you're not really meeting because what you're saying is impact isn't resonating by your management team. So this was just really kind of a short discussion on, do you understand the organizational currency? Have you done some research? And there's plenty of ways to go do that. And do you know, or have you asked your manager that if you represent your impacts this way, it will be seen as equal and important to the type of work and the way that's represented at a more senior level, so the value of that can be realized? Because as we all know, if the organization and your leadership team can't equate the value of your work, that could put a lot of things in jeopardy. And so I've always found it to be a great practice to really learn the currency of an organization, and then really try to scope the output of my individual and team work towards that currency, because that's how you will grow overall value for not only yourself for delivering value, but then also for your team. And it'll also build more trust, which we'll talk about in the next section. Thank you.